Final day of practice wrapping up here at stop number 5, Smith Lake, Alabama. Tournament this week brought to you by TH Marine. And take a look at who we have here. Matt Arey, Pennzoil Marine Pro, coming in around dark or so. And Matt, I was just telling you a minute ago, I finally got me some Sunrise Silver Costas. Those things are under the silver mirrors.
Right there.
That's
the deal. That is the deal.
Low light sight fishing.
Even when the water comes up 8 feet, you can still see them on the bed.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought there'd be a lot of sight fishing going on this week, but we had a little problem with the 4-foot rise.
It never fails. It never fails. FLW fishing lousy weather, right?
I know you like to look at them.
Yeah, and Sunday I started looking at a few. Yeah. And then this happened. Best case scenario, they drop it about 4 feet tomorrow, and it could reveal even maybe some new ones we didn't find Sunday in that monsoon. But then again, you look at the forecast for the tournament, and it was like 40% chance. Then it went to 80. Now it's 100. Okay. And from like lunchtime to check-in, it's there's even little lightning bolts in the forecast now. So nothing new for us, though. Nothing new.
Yeah, it looks like from looking at the past graph of this thing, they can pull this thing down really fast.
Absolutely. And I've been told, you know, when this lake's at full pool, which it was about when we started, it was close.
Right.
And
it came up, what, 4 feet now? 4.5?
Since Sunday, it's about close to 4 feet. Yeah. Okay. Since Sunday. But they had dropped it about a half a foot between Saturday and Sunday, maybe in preparation for the rain that we got. I don't know. But regardless, they're not running hardly any water yesterday and today. They're supposed to turn the gates on tomorrow. If that happens, this lake can fall fast. Okay. I do know that. But usually when it's at full pool, I've heard they don't like to let it get too terribly high, but depending on what's going on down below here, is going to make a big difference in this tournament. Because if they don't move it and it keeps filling up, and we get all that rain Thursday and it keeps coming up,
I see what you're saying.
It could make it a little tricky.
Right. Okay. The first day when you got to look around, in terms of what you saw on bed, give us an idea where you think we are in the spawn here.
Definitely more post spawn.
Okay.
I mean, even all the fish that I've caught out, really poor looking.
Okay.
You know,
interesting.
We've talked about that with weights too, with my practice partner and myself, and there's no way the weights can be up from when we were here in 2015. That was more of a pre-spawn spawn deal. Okay. And the first few spawners that we had, from what I could tell, but all the fish were fat, pretty healthy. Okay. Now they just look, I mean, they look beat up, they look spawned out. I'd say 95% of everything I've caught in practice is either a spawning fish that, well, I didn't jerk on most of the spawning fish, the ones that I thought were spawning. Okay. You can't see them now, but the ones that were out, that were already done spawning, regardless of where you caught them, I mean, they're poor. I mean, we had one close to 20 inches today that weighed, I weighed it was a 298. I mean, it was a rail. Okay. It was an absolute rail.
We were just talking to Dudley on Facebook Live there. He was bragging about how many bites he was getting today. It's been the same for you.
He does that all the time. He's like, I'm getting 60 bites. It's so easy. Just throw that little perfection jig head out there.
That's exactly what he said.
Imagine that. Every tournament all year long. That or a wacky worm. Does he own anything else? I mean, he's got like a few other rods on the deck, but it's a wacky worm and a jig head. Now, I give him credit. He's probably made more money than anybody in the world on a wacky worm and jig head, but he's always getting 60 or 70 bites.
Yeah, he was picking on you pretty bad about your flat bill, and
it's not flat. It's a brand.
What was that about, Dudley?
Let me just clear this up real quick. This is a brand new hat that I had to get out of the truck. Okay. We always want to look good for our interviews.
Understand.
We want to support our sponsors that support us, and he's yelling over there on Facebook Live trying to make me look stupid, but this is not a flat bill. There is a bend in it, and it's brand new. So, enough said.
You getting a lot of bites?
Decent amount.
Yeah.
Decent amount. I mean, not 60 a day in Dudley terms, but you know, we're getting a lot of bites. I'm not jerking on a lot of fish just because it seems like a numbers game here to me. It's not like you're going to go out there and catch 6 3-pounders and that's all you catch. You're going to have to weed through them, and you know, the 2 3/4 pound plus fish are going to be key this week for sure.
Did you go play largemouth at all?
I did. Yeah, the first day. Okay. I chased them quite a bit and had a few bites here and there from largemouth, but they're definitely few and far between. And especially with the water up, you know, I fished a lot of this newly flooded stuff today just to see if any of the fish started shifting to it. Okay. I didn't do any good on it today. Now, that's not to say it might happen Thursday. So, I mean, you saw what happened at Beaver last year when McCombs won it on a buzzbait, and that was all brand new. But those fish started sliding up in it pretty quickly.
And speaking of McCombs, I think he learned some of that from this part of the woods where he's from.
Guaranteed.
Some of that pattern he was doing at Beaver Lake.
Yeah, he's licking his lips right now, waiting for this derby to get going, because these changing conditions really play into a local's wheelhouse, because he's going to be able to adapt because he knows the lake so well, and he's going to be able to run around and kind of fish his strengths.
The main thing I'll be curious to see if they do start pulling this water hard is, will it generate any current within the lake? I'm not talking about Kentucky Lake current, but current movement through this lake that can help position fish better. I
don't know. I mean, when you're dealing with herring fish, I don't think current plays a role. Okay. I think they're just going to go wherever the herring go, and if it sets the bait, I mean, these herring are constantly moving, and the fish are constantly moving with them. So. Okay.
You finished 11th here last time, and you're coming off a nice finish at Cumberland.
Well, I wouldn't call it nice, but we got paid.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Compared to the way I've been fishing this year, yeah, it's great.
You know, I always think of you at Beaver Lake. You've got 2 wins there, and you always do good at Grand. And they've kind of taken Beaver off the schedule now, and inserting the Cumberlands and some of these. How do you feel about that?
I like it. You know, everybody's like, I bet you're mad you're not going back to Beaver again. Right. I'm like, well, you know, honestly, I'd really love going to new lakes, fisheries we don't have a lot of history on. I like exploring new bodies of water. Several of these lakes, you know, this is only my 2nd or 3rd time to some of them. Some of them my 1st or 2nd. And I like that. I mean, I think that's what professional fishing should be about. I think we should be challenged more regularly. And Beaver was, I don't want to say it was played out. I mean, yeah, of course I'd like to go back there, you know. Practically.
But you've been there, we've been there so many times. Every stretch that was a good stretch was known.
That's right. I mean, there's not any more secrets on that lake. And, you know, I'd like to go back, but there again, I enjoy going to these fisheries. I mean, in all these, Cumberland, Smith, they're very similar. You know, they set up very similar to Beaver, and I like them. I'm very comfortable in these types of bodies of water, and hopefully we can keep the momentum rolling and keep cashing checks, because I'm still down there in the points. I got some work to do. So,
well, you've got a few tournaments to make it all up, and we can get started here this week. So thanks for coming by and talking with us, Matt. And hey, get out there and get after Dudley. He can't get all the bites all the time.
I'm gonna follow him around during the tournament. I'm gonna see how many bites he's getting.
All right, darkness is upon us. We're winding it down here for the final day of practice. I always like to see who comes in dead last. We have Alan Boyd here. Alan, I have to tell you, I pulled you out of line because I so enjoyed watching you put that spinnerbait beat down thrashing on those fish at Cumberland at the last tournament. What a good time.
I had a lot of fun there. Wish I could do it here, but I've tried. Spent a lot of time with it in my hand here. Tried a lot of different styles, and even underspins. Just something moving, and I can't make it happen. So,
from the minute I started watching you on live, I could tell you are a spinnerbait aficionado. Like your mechanics, where you put it, where you land it, the little flutter you have. Where do you get that mad fishing skill from? I mean, where does that come from? Where you grow up?
Well, we spend a lot of time on the Ohio River. Okay. Not many fish there.
Okay.
It's a pretty tough fishery.
So you get a lot of casting practice?
You get a lot of casting practice. You know, and the whole key to it is to make as many accurate casts in a day's time as you can. And, you know, a lot of times you're going to end up with some fish doing that. You got to cover a lot of water. And so I've gotten pretty good at that. But, you know, the last few years I've kind of got onto the swim jig kick. Okay. A little bit more. You know, so many other guys back home throw that spinnerbait a lot too, and so the swim jig's kind of it fits my style too, and I think it's something kind of new. So I enjoy throwing that too, you know. So.
Well, you're back on the tour for your second time you've won the Living the Dream package, and back on tour, now sitting 26 in the points, so that's pretty nice. Here, I know with the water coming up, rising, that's probably a condition you like, but sounds like it's not really. Are you finding any of what you like up there in terms of bushes, trees, flooded stuff? It all looks good?
It all looks good. You know, but most places that I'm familiar with, you know, I haven't got to travel the country quite as much as some of these guys, but what I'm used to, when water comes up like we got here, the fish come right up with it.
Okay.
These fish don't seem to be doing that. Okay. And maybe it just takes them a little bit of time. It doesn't appear that it's fallen yet, but I've heard they can really drop this lake quick. And maybe that's why they haven't made the move up yet, but hopefully a day of rest and they'll come up. But I really don't want to have to go out there for them, you know. Hopefully they come up and play shallow.
I assume that you're not going to spend much time here with a spinning rod in your hand down here at the dam fishing for spotted bass. Am I right about that?
Yeah, if you see me with a spinning rod, I'm in trouble.
So you're all in on this, on going up in the, how many different branches have you been up in? There's so many of them. I'm not asking which ones, but how many have
Every one.
Have you really?
I have.
So just give us a little idea of what the mud is like. We haven't talked to anybody we've been talking to everybody fishing down the lake. Give us an idea of how much mud is rolling in the tops of these places.
This is kind of weird to me how the mud worked here.
Okay.
I ran up some the first day that had really good color, and then we got all the rain, and then you would hit this just straight mud line, and it would go from clear to mud.
Okay. Bad mud.
Bad mud.
Okay.
Like unfishable mud.
Right. Okay.
And I kind of went back over some of that today, kind of seeing if it would mix a little bit. But the reason I say it's weird, it's like the clear water just pushed the mud back. In some places it would, where the mud line was, it is now a mile further back up the creek, and it's like it's not mixing. It's really weird how this mud is working.
It's almost like are you saying the mud's going opposite direction than it should be?
Yes.
Interesting. Wow. Okay.
The mud's going backwards in the creek.
Okay. And so it's not like the lake's backing up, so to speak.
I think you got more volume of clear water, and it's pushing the mud
actually
back.
Pouring in the lower end and pushing it all back. That's pretty interesting.
And I noticed on some of these shallow points that come out, you know, the current yesterday was just, I mean, it had the tops of the bushes moving, going backwards.
Okay.
So, you know, I think at some point, you know, there's still a lot of water running in the lake. Okay. But that's going to slow down, and it should start going the other way. And hopefully it mixes and we get that good stain, you know,
like you had at Cumberland.
Yes, yes.
That good spinnerbait stain.
Yes.
and I just think that probably in any lake, after it's come up like this and you get water that's falling out of that stuff, I think you kind of had that condition a little bit ago. Well, every time you get that falling, it's bringing stuff to you. That's a big help, like a falling tide, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's what you'd like to see.
And those fish should, some are, that I've caught here have been like way back in the stuff. Okay. And I think if they pull it very hard, they should get on the outer edges of the bushes and trees and things. Okay. To where they're
a little easier.
Yeah, they're still going to be spread out some, but I think they'll be a little easier to get to.
I'm not going to ask you how many, we know what species you're after. I want to ask you how many you're catching today, but I would like to know what the biggest largemouth you've caught since you've been here is, if you'll answer that.
I did catch one about 5 pounds.
Wow, wow. We've had some questions on Facebook asking what do you think will be the big fish of the tournament. We all know it'll most likely be a largemouth, so the guess has been kind of 5 to 6 pounds.
I'd say so.
Yeah. Health of that fish, did it look, I mean, pre-spawn, spawn, post?
I'm pretty sure it spawned out.
Long, skinny fish.
Yep. So there's just not many of those bites to be had for me.
Yeah.
I just gotta keep my head down and hope for the best, really, you know.
If you make that approach, will you pick a different arm every day, or are you going to just pick one arm and stay in it the entire tournament?
No, I think this is kind of like what I had thought going into Cumberland. Okay. I think I'm going to have to move a lot. Okay. A lot of moving.
Yeah, and it's a big lake, kind of like Cumberland. Not as big as Cumberland, but you start doing a lot of moving in these arms and it eats time up.
Yep, yep.
Okay. Well, very good. We're going to wrap it up here. Alan, thanks for joining us out here today. We enjoyed the kind of the wind down in the dark and getting some of those, reviewing that incredible finish there at Cumberland. I'll remember that for a long time.
Good
luck to you out there this week.